On July 3rd, I received a shipment of 5 king salmon from Paula and Peter Crimp of smallboatsalmon.com. Beautiful, bright silver fish, not a hint of pink. These were for converting primarily into salmon lox or Nova lox. Here I am using a power washer to remove the scales. You can see them flying off like a shower of little coins. There I've removed the tail, and I'm beginning to section the fish. A little incorrectly, I should slice instead of hammer, and just use the hammer for going through the spine. Here I'm cutting 2 steaks, and then the last 2 fillets. The fish came cleaned, gutted, bled, with the heads on and the tails on. And here's that huge knife. Looks huge, it is huge, but it certainly does the job. Very sharp. And I'm using a chainmail glove to protect my fingers from their getting amputated. There are 2 steaks that are going into a little dish for dinner and for subsequent freezing. I'm doing a minimum of steaks, mostly fillets. Here I'm filleting the tail pieces. The tail piece makes very poor lox. The muscle in the tail is primarily what propels the fish. It's quite tough. And just as different parts of the steer have different properties in terms of taste and consistency, that's true of salmon as well, in terms of density, toughness, fat content, and so on. Here I'm removing the spine from the other half with a very flexible, very sharp filleting knife. Tail pieces are going into the little dish with the steaks, and now I'm filleting the remaining chunks. You can see I made a little mistake there. I screwed up. I sliced into the fillet. Shouldn't have, but stuff happens. And am I in a hurry? Yes, we had dinner guests, plus it was imperative to get this all into the dry salt and sugar mix for 12 hours, and it was already 7 p.m. And we have to work the day after. We had to work the day after this, 2 days after this, and I wanted to get everything synced properly. And here I'm deciding whether to cut this chunk into steaks, but no, they'd be too thick. So I will fillet this. Now this is really a little too thick for easy lox making. That fillet is fully 2 inches thick. It's hard for it to absorb all the brine, but it'll do. In the future, I'll order from Peter and Paul salmon that are maybe 15 pounds cleaned and head on instead of 20 pounds, and that'll solve the problem. But these will do. There's the last chunk. Also, at least that's 2.5 inches thick. That's quite thick. Those pieces will have to be brined for a full 24 hours in a nearly saturated solution of brine. The thinner pieces require only 9 to 12 hours. And here I missed some ribs. They're gone. The peritoneum, or the lining of the belly, I don't remove. The ribs within there are so fine that you can hardly detect them or feel them when you eat the fish. Last fillet being done. Now I'm going to, yeah, that was, you could see through that skeleton, but the videographer didn't catch it. I'm cutting off the thin pieces to be brined separately in a separate bucket of almost saturated brine for much less time. The thinnest pieces get only 9 hours, intermediate 12 hours, very thick 24 hours. The next step is to incise the skin of the fillets with a single bladed razor blade. The razor blade slices through the skin very easily on the belly pieces, but on the body pieces you sometimes have to forcibly hit the corner of the blade into the skin to get the incision started. Scoring the skin allows the brine to enter the fillet from the skin side as well as from the flesh side, and it's really essential to get some modicum of even brining, especially on the thicker pieces. Brining is what cures the lox. The lox subsequently has to be freshened in running water for 2 to 4 hours, running cold water, to get out the salt, but the cure remains. These fillets are placed in a dry salt sugar mix of 4 pounds of brown sugar to 3 pounds of coarse salt, any brand, Fred Meyer's, Diamond Crystal, Morton's. The thinner pieces get a fairly thin layering of the salt sugar mix, and the thick pieces get more. They're kept in these bins outdoors. Well, I put them in the shed with the hasp of the hasp locked so that bears can't get at it, for 12 hours. Then they're brined for 9 to 24 hours, depending on the thickness. When you're arranging the pieces in a bin, you must always put them skin to skin or flesh to flesh, never skin to flesh, because if there are any scales left on the skin, they will get onto the flesh surface of the fillets and be hard to remove. They'll be there forever. And this, okay, there's just a couple of collars, tail fillet, and that's it.